My name is Gwen Schaefer, and I am on faculty in the Department of Journalism and Public Relations. I conduct telecommunications policy research with a focus on digital inclusion and data privacy. And I also teach a GE course called Culture and Politics of the Internet. And for this presentation, Janie asked me to walk everyone through the criteria laid out in the research stipend application and to use my own project proposal as an example. So what I plan to do is toggle between both. And this is the study that I submitted to the Euclea Center way back in 2015, and it was ultimately funded by the Media Inequality and Change Center, which is housed at the University of Pennsylvania's Annenberg School for Communication. But it was partially the positive feedback from Euclea Center reviewers that helped validate the underlying assertions for the study. And really, that's what gave me the confidence to apply for external funding. So first, let's talk about the primary application criteria, and I'm going to start with background and significance. And this is something you might want to think of as your elevator pitch or your project summary. You need to immediately justify that your project warrants support. And this section should focus on what is unique or novel about your research, what does your research contribute to the field. You need to answer the so what question and articulate how your project fits into the Euclea Center's mission. So you really want to leave the reviewers thinking, yes, this project needs to happen. And as an example, I'll talk about my project background and significance. So my co-PI and I hypothesized that online privacy violations from corporations, social media platforms, and government disproportionately impact marginalized Americans who rely on cell phones for internet access. And therefore, this section of my proposal connected two bodies of research that address technology-driven inequalities. I looked at the fact that low-income Hispanic and Black Americans are more likely to rely on phones to access the internet compared to wealthier white Americans, and that mobile internet use and apps and phones themselves all leak more device-specific data compared to accessing the internet on a computer. And then I argued that how mobile surveillance is employed must be addressed from an ethical standpoint. So I made it clear that my project fell within the confines of the Euclea Center's mission. I also pointed out what was missing from existing studies. So I talked about how survey data collected by the Pew Research Center was great in terms of statistics about mobile tech habits, but emphasized that quantitative research lacks context and detail. And I explained that my qualitative study would fill that gap. The next application criterion I want you to think about is the theoretical framework for your project. So providing a theoretical framework will strengthen your proposal by offering a basis for your hypothesis and research questions, as well as your choice of research methods. It's going to enable reviewers to evaluate your research critically. A theoretical framework helps you connect the research to existing knowledge, and it forces you to address questions of why and how. And I would also add that theory permits you to intellectually transition from simply describing a phenomenon you have observed to generalizing about various aspects of that phenomenon. So again, using my proposal as an example, I articulated a theoretical position that was grounded in science and technology studies, which focused on the development of socio-legal frameworks of privacy law and privacy rights. And this specific interpretation of STS is informed by communication theory, which considers technology design and user consumption practices to engage with issues of social inequality. And my co-PI and I also used social capital theory for our analysis. And finally, our research questions emerged from this theoretical position. We asked three primary research questions. First, how do cell-mostly internet users articulate the perceived risk factors affecting their mobile phone data practices, and how do they conceptualize data privacy? Second, to what extent do economically marginalized individuals consider mobile privacy breaches as discriminatory or unjust? And our third research question was, how do our study participants alter behavior or pass up opportunities due to privacy concerns? The next application criterion will require you to articulate a methodology. So for instance, if your plan includes interviews, explain why these study participants? How will you recruit them? What will you ask them? And why? Do you have IRB approval? Do you have partner organizations? And you really want to leave the reviewers thinking, this project is absolutely doable if he or she follows these steps. And for my methodology for the Euclea Center project that I had submitted a few years ago, we asked participants about their knowledge of data tracking and their attitudes toward mobile data privacy. And we also asked about their online practices. And we really made an effort to make the focus group discussions as interactive as possible. So for example, this is a screenshot of one of the visual prompts that we used during our focus group discussions, and I included that with my proposal. And as part of our methodology, we also collected data through participant observation. So we asked 15 Android phone users to install an app called App Usage, and that provided us with detailed reports on phone usage over a 2-week period. So what this app does is it tracks how much time people spend using their mobile phones, including a breakdown by specific app. So whether it's Instagram or YouTube or Waze or Spotify, this app will give you a spreadsheet of how much time the participants spent on each application. Okay, so there's an example of the app usage reports that we collected at the end of this two-week period. That our study participants allowed us to track. Oops, sorry. Um, okay, the next application criterion asks about anticipated outcomes. So for this in your proposal, you really want to specify your anticipated outcomes relevant to the goal of your project. So these may be written in precise, measurable terms using words such as to increase, to reduce, to improve, and your anticipated outcomes should answer what will change in some significant way through your research, or maybe you will address what institutional advancements will take place, or perhaps what new knowledge will be gained, or what engineered system will be improved, something like this. How will your project impact or add to knowledge in the field? So for my anticipated outcomes in my Euclea project proposal, I said that our research findings informed policy recommendations for government regulators, for cell phone users themselves, for consumer advocates, and for industry stakeholders, including both mobile phone manufacturers and wireless carriers. And we also said that we intended for our findings to serve as the basis for a future public information campaign that's meant to help minimize discriminatory practices in the networked sphere. So that's a project we'd still love to do. We just need additional funding. And then finally, on the application, you are going to need to demonstrate that you are qualified to do this research. So, given space restraints, be strategic when compiling your faculty history. Include only items that demonstrate you possess the specific skills and experience needed to pull off the research you describe. So that might be other grants or publications. And you really ultimately want to leave the reviewers thinking, based on past accomplishments, this applicant can definitely complete this project. So I think that covers most of the criterion that are requested be addressed in the application. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to contact me. Obviously, it's just through email these days, but it's gwen.schaefer@csulb.edu. And thanks.